This is Season 2 of the Brew and Ink podcast.
Welcome back to Brew and Ink. This is our second season, and we are on episode 2 of the Flash Fiction Competition. And we'll have round 2 tonight. And with us at the table here, we have Sarah.
Hello.
We have Steven.
What's up, everybody?
We have Bill.
Yep.
And we have Evie.
Hey.
And this is Britt. And we're going to get started with a little announcement. So on October the 6th, we just kind of want to let everybody know, if you're in the Atlanta area especially, on October the 6th, there will be a writing conference, a one-day kind of boot camp right here in Duluth in Gwinnett, which is northeast Atlanta. And it's going to be a great time, and they're going to be talking about like social media. They're going to be talking about nonfiction. They're going to be talking about a couple of different things. So go on to seriouswriter.com/Atlanta, and you can register and see prices. It's cheaper if you go with a buddy. I will be there, probably serving coffee. I know
Will you be my buddy?
I can be your buddy, but I'll be your coffee buddy, basically.
Yes.
I'll be the one serving coffee, making sure everything's set up that day. It's going to be a great time. And also towards the end of October, there will be another writing conference we were talking about earlier before we got started here, also in Atlanta, and that will be focused on character development. It's going to be like a 2 or 3 day conference. It's going to be downtown. So couple announcements for you guys here in the Atlanta area, or if you're not in the Atlanta area and you want to come in, Bill might let you stay at his house.
I was going to say, Brett, like you said, he's open doors.
I've already got people staying at my house on October the 6th. The people, Michelle and Bethany, will be staying in my guest room. I already have people there that weekend, but the next weekend, yes, we'll have a guest room ready. So our topic tonight is...
We're going to talk about what do you do, where do you get your inspiration when you're starting off with a new project? You know, that step right before then, like where do you get your inspiration, where do you get your ideas, things to help you dive into a new story.
I think for me, as we're getting into it, we have so many ideas, and maybe I think we can all relate to this, but as writers, I forget which author it was, but some author talked about, I think it was George R. R. Martin, where he talked about people coming up to him and be like, a book you should write, and they give him an idea. And he's like, do you really think I don't have enough ideas? Right. Like, do you really think, like, I'm sitting around going, man, I wish I just had more ideas. He goes, I don't have time in my life to write the ideas that I want to now. So you write that. That sounds like a great idea. You write that idea. Yeah, so as writers, we have no shortage of ideas, right? So when we're finishing up one thing or when we get an idea, I think for me, it becomes a choice. Like, what am I going to work on next? What is this? What am I going to kind of dive into next? And once we make that choice, the question then becomes, how do you inspire yourself? When you choose a project, what you're going to do next, how do you inspire yourself to move forward and to get ready to write? Evie, what do you do?
It's interesting that this comes up now because with the Flash Fiction, I had to go so far outside of my comfort zone that switching from my normal everyday fantasy to horror, which I have avoided for 29 years, was crazy. I mean, I absolutely hate horror. So when I got that,
not
I'm like,
even a kind of scary movie that most people would think is, not that scary.
Like
Evie's like, nope, not doing it.
Yep. I mean, seriously. And so it's so funny for me to get that. I'm like, how do I put myself in this headspace? Mm-hmm. And it was just interesting. It took me days. I had to sit there and I started, slowly letting things kind of hit me, both emotionally. I tried to watch a movie and I was like, nope, I'm out. And then I read a book and I was like, this is actually kind of lame. And then I went back to like going with childhood memories. I'm like, okay, I remember reading Edgar Allan Poe with a friend, and we locked ourselves in the bathroom, in the dark with a little candle and read it by candlelight. And we didn't know my mom was home, and she walks in and we scream bloody murder. So I was like, I'm going to reread some Edgar Allan Poe.
Yeah.
And that helped sparked it. And then from there, that emotional point of music. Music for me gets me every time. I just have to find the right music.
Right.
and then it just sparks. And so as soon as I'm kind of in my space, then I'm just, off.
How do you get to that space where you're ready to really write, and really jump in? Because I think a lot of times the writer's block comes from the fear of I'm not ready, I don't know what I'm doing next, or whatever. You
Where
get
do I
into that.
start?
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do I start? And so that's why this question is important. When you start a new project, what's some of the process that you go through? What do you think, Bill?
When you guys brought this up, I went and I looked at my little schedule, my little spreadsheet that says when I was writing what. I realized that there's usually about 5 or 6 days between me ending one project and starting another one. And what happens in that time is I've got a whole bunch of stuff that I've been wanting to catch up on forever that I do all at once. Errands, paperwork, do a quick rewrite of this, a quick rewrite of that, get all my ducks in a row with respect to chasing down agents and trying to get one to read my stuff. All that stuff I do in that space. But in that space, already I'm starting to try to decide what I have the momentum for in here. And I'm hitting my chest here right now, okay? Okay. I'm trying to figure out what I can do now. Where is my heart? Where is my head? Because I've got a whole lot of story ideas. And sometimes I think, I'm going to work on this one next.
Right.
But when I get to that point, I'm not emotionally at that stage where I can work on that story. And that's a big deal because you have to put yourself in the place of the characters. At least I do. You have to be in that mode to get started, to get kick-started. At that point, it's like this last time. I really surprised myself by going back to a screenplay that I'd written years ago and coming back and ripping that up and going, I want to write this into a book. And, of course, it's not going to be anything like the screenplay. But that was the starting place for that. Yeah. And that was the thing that I had momentum for emotionally and spiritually. And every part of me was ready to write that. Now, I get halfway through it, and like all first drafts, I'm going, was I really ready to write this? But that's what first drafts are about. You knock them out, and you just keep going. And already, and Evie said, this flash fiction made me get into this other place. And I'm going, okay, this flash fiction, the story that I came up with from this, if I had another 90,000 words to work on, I could make a book out of this. Right. And I'm like, I'm almost finished with the first draft with something else. I might wind up doing a book out of this. And, and it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah, and that's actually a good segue for me. A lot of times with my stories usually comes from a short story that I've already written probably a couple years ago. Or I also do like what you're saying. I keep a list of just little ideas with just a quick, whatever came to my mind in that moment. I'll go through the list, and usually like you're saying, Bill, I'll think I'm going to jump into the one that's been in my head. As I'm working on some other project, I'm going, okay, that's the next one I'm going to do. But you're right. Sometimes you get to it, you end your one story, and then you're like, I don't feel like writing that one. And for me, if I'm in that zone, I'll start going back to my favorite authors in different genres, and I'll just read something from them, because when I read, it's like pulling it out of me, and I'm like, and I think that's why I don't read as much as I do anymore. I listen to audiobooks a lot more, because when I start reading, I start getting all these ideas in my head, and I'm not even paying attention to what's on the page anymore, and then I'm like, I'm just going to go write. So reading for me is one, but then also just the idea of going back to maybe something that you've already written now, whether it's a paragraph or a short story, and revisiting that. For the most part, you're probably going to redo, there'll be a skeletal, remains of what that short story was, but it's going to be completely different.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because a lot of times I have actually written out similarly. Mine keep coming from dreams. A dream is always vivid and weird. You get to kind of morph it into whatever you want. I kind of get that idea.
A lot of my little ideas that I have come from dreams. I had a really crazy dream the other day. We're not going to get into that, but I was doing a lot of research this week on lucid dreaming. I had a crazy lucid dream the other day, but anyways. But that's a lot of where my story ideas will come from,
state of my existence.
Yeah.
So what about for you, Sarah? Do you go through any process when you think, I'm going to write this story, or do you just write it? How do you do it?
I have a lot of ideas, but recently I sat down to write something, and I think I wasn't ready. It's autobiographical but fictional, so it's based on a memory, but I'm gonna fictionalize it. So there's some parts of it that aren't really exactly true, but I couldn't get into it, and it deals with some tough things that I experienced as a child. So I was like, you know what? I'm not feeling it. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'll pull out another idea. But I listen to podcasts constantly. I read a lot. I read a lot of books. Pretty much if I'm not running or exercising, I'm either reading, writing, or trying to figure out something to write about, or drawing, or, spend time with my son. But, or I'll write down snatches of conversations that I hear. I carry a tape recorder with me. I don't typically pull it out and record people because I feel like that's unethical. But if I hear something, I'll repeat it in my mind and record it with my own voice as soon as I can. Yeah, I just try to write it. And if it doesn't come out, then I'll just put it aside and do something else. I write short stories, so it's easy for me to write a bunch of different stuff. The idea of writing a novel sounds great, and I'm hoping that maybe I'll write a lot of short stories and I'll find a common thread that I can weave into a novel, right?
Sure.
But for me, I have to not think about the daunting task of novel writing, dun, 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 because it blocks me from maybe even being able to do that. It's just like running an ultra marathon. So I run long distances, right? 30 plus miles. But when I get there, I don't think I'm going to run 30 plus miles. I'm just like, oh, I can't wait to get to the creek. And then, oh, the aid station has cookies at mile 7. And then I think, oh, I want to go run by that cool building that I'm going to pass in Sweetwater Park. So, like, I don't think about the mileage. I don't think about the mile markers. And I don't think about the end until I cross it, right? So if I try to think about writing a novel, I get, like, super overwhelmed and, intimidated. So
yeah, and it's funny that you say that again. It kind of goes back to something that we've talked about several times now. But the idea of coming together and setting a time and a routine, because when you start out, you're just like, okay, I want to feel that inspiration. And the more you write and the more you turn it into a job, it will come. I mean, we've obviously seen it with Bill and Britt and even Steven, where they talk about finding that routine and like teaching that inspiration to come.
Well, Sarah, your analogy was almost perfect for going from short stories to achieving a novel. Like knowing those next section that you want to hit that you're excited for. Like, oh, I know I want to go past that train station because that's an exciting part for me. Like that's how it is when you're like, okay, I wrote this short story, part of my bigger narrative, and now I know I want to get to that next part.
And if you want to get down to the micromanaging of a novel and how to move on to the next part of the project, that's what it's about. It's about trying to either plan in your brain or on the page. I literally outline as I go. I will be writing one chapter and I'll go, I'm at the end of my day and I don't have time to write these things down. So I'll write a couple of notes down for the next day. And I'll come back to it and I'll look at those. And if those work, those work. They might not. The characters might take the story another direction.
Yeah. I was reading some quote by somebody. I should probably know this, but I don't. But he talked about every scene is a story in itself. And so, those little mile markers, every scene that I said, story. Like, this is a short story, this is a short story.
You can really get down to, like, every sentence has an arc. Every paragraph has an arc. Like, you have to get to the point where you realize that every scene has its own arc. What's the goal? Who's the character? Like when the guy was editing The Living Stone, my editor, the first time, he was like, who's talking? Who is this? What do they care? Why do I care about this scene? And getting into it. And so for me, I'm a little more of a researcher on some things, but that's because I like to do different kinds of things. So for me, if I'm going to choose to say, all right, I'm going to do this project, like half the time I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Like I really don't know. Like when I wrote a children's book, someone said, "Will you write a children's book for me?" I went, I've never done it, but I'll figure it out. So
you had a title and a genre.
I had a title and a genre.
Nice. Nailed it.
But it was one of those things where I read books on children's books. I listened to podcasts. I bought the children's book, whatever the publisher's thing.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did all that stuff, and I read through, and I read articles, and I read children's books. I
Yeah.
I Googled the top 10 children's books of the year, or the last few years, and I tried to get them from the library, and I just tried to immerse myself in that stuff to the point. But it still took one day of boom, it happened. Like one day, it just it just had to happen.
Started singing.
The muse started singing, but that's kind of how it is with a lot of what I do. Like right now, I'm rewatching the Hobbit movies, and then I'm going to get into the Lord of the Rings because I want to get back into, after I write Kill a God, after I finish that manuscript, I want to get back into the world of the Eris Chronicles. And so I want to get back into that fantasy mindset. I want to get back into that thing. And so for me, it's movies, it's music. I read books in that genre. I'm reading books in science fiction right now because I'm trying to kind of immerse myself in what's modern science fiction again, and trying to, because I have an idea for science fiction, a YA science fiction series.
Come join me in the science fiction realm.
So for me, it's a combination of things. It's reading books, it's watching movies, sometimes it's research if I don't know how to do it, and then it's getting the right music. And I love playlists. You know, I'm old. Back in the day, we had mixtapes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so literally, like the first book I wrote.
Is that like Spotify?
Yeah, it's just like that.
That's the electronic mixtape, baby.
But I would make a mixtape.
Right.
Like I would sit there. Oh, there's no telling how much time I spent with the tape and a tape
And the radio.
and
radio.
not just the radio, just all the albums and the tapes that I had,
yeah.
all the music that I already had. Like, now I want this song, and I want this song, and I want this song, and this is the mixtape for like my romantic stuff, and this is the mixtape for like the scary stuff. And it was so weird. But now I just have playlists. Now you just go into iTunes and
So we've just got a whole new subject here, and that is how to stall starting on your next project. We're gonna watch the Lord of the Rings movie. That's 30 hours.
Well, but I'm finishing up Kill a God. Like I'm writing that, but I want to get into that headspace because for me, I have to sit on an idea for a long time before I write it. Like, especially if it's a book, I have to sit, or anything, the children's book, anything. I have to sit on it for a long time. You know, I have to get the right names of the characters. I have to get the right relationships, and I have to get the right goals for the character. And it's just sometimes it takes just laying down and just being bored. Being bored is the best way to be creative.
You know, a lot of my ideas come in the middle of my work day.
Yeah.
When I'm in the middle of doing something routine over and over, and then it's like just going through my head. But yeah, it's like you said, being bored will give you that spark of all of a sudden you're like, oh.
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same way, and that's kind of how I found the library at Mount Char. I want to write a literary horror novel, okay? Very specific genre. Not a lot out there, but I went and Googled it, and there was a few books that popped up. Library at Mount Char was one of them, and then this other one, The House of Leaves, and then I read Little Stranger by I think her name was Sarah something. But I basically read all the books, and I can get myself in research land and never do anything in book land.
So let's announce the winner of 2 weeks ago, the last Flash Fiction competition. Somebody kicked my butt. Who was it?
It was Katie Compton with her Strongbow fairy tale. So congratulations, Katie.
Snap it?
Yeah.
Good job, Katie.
You did great.
So yeah, we'll get back to, you know, bringing in her into the mix again, and we might even bring in some of the other writers as well, depending on how many weeks we go on this. But this week we're moving forward.
We're moving forward. So if you have watched the Facebook Live, we chose the names, and they were Evie and Bill, and they got the title, The Heist of Song. And Bill got, what did you get? What was
Historical
his genre?
fiction.
Historical fiction, that's right. And you got horror.
Yeah, thank you.
And which both sound awesome. So without further ado, we're just going to get into reading these.
All right.
All right. So again, you guys are going to listen to these two and go onto our website or our Facebook page and vote for your favorite. So let's get moving.
Brewing Inc. is now syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. See them at SeriousWriter.com for resources, articles, videos, topical classes, and now a podcast, the Brewing Inc. Podcast, because we're syndicated on SeriousWriter.com. I was 4F, too frail, milquetoast, they said at the draft office. My name is Frankie. In 41, I was 19, playing third violin with the Newark Philharmonic. I had a sideline, too. My delicate ear and sensitive fingers had found a way to make a little cash opening iron boxes. It was mostly legit, for PIs and such. When I left the draft office, a guy pointed at me. Then a guy in a tweed suit nodded and followed. I never had a tail before. I bolted. I'm not strong or fast, but I lost Mr. Tweed Jacket. In about an hour, he knocked on my door. I'm with the draft board, he said. I laughed. Sure, he was straight from Uncle Sam to offer me a job. He was. 6 weeks later, me and 4 guys skated low over the Alps in a plywood box. They called it a glider. I ain't saying what the pilot called it. We were falling like a 2-pound rock sailing on a paper airplane. I was puking and trying not to crap myself at the same time, hanging off the cargo net when we crashed. Nice. I'm 9 miles out of Vienna in Nazi land with 4 busted-up guys and a dead pilot. Everyone is talking to me. You got to do this. You got to do that. I got to get out of here. You do, said the major, a guy almost as scrawny as me. I didn't like it, but I ain't no shirker. It was my job to liberate hundreds of pages of precious sheet music from a vault in Vienna. I wore the major's suit and green handkerchief. I imagined a building with columns of guards outside waiting to arrest me. I found a university with some Nazi banners hanging by the doors. Inside, it smelled like lemon oil and rosin, my kind of place. I wasn't there 3 minutes before an old man grabbed me by the arm and started to talk to me in German. I don't talk German. He drugged me into an office and started pacing. I thought for sure he would keel over. Instead, a smart-looking girl, about 17, came in. You are to save the music? I nodded. Where's your truck? Truck? I came in a box. She didn't laugh. I didn't know a blonde kid in a skirt could look so tough. 2 men guarded page after page of handwritten music from the greats, Bach, Beethoven, Mozart, and hundreds of others, all of it in one room in the very building I stood in, but I had no truck. Where would I take a truck if I had one? The man that knew that passed out before telling me. You have no plan, said Anna, the blonde. I nodded. I really hated to disappoint them, especially her. She didn't like disappointment either. You must make one, she said. Ha! I slept on the office floor. The sun was coming up when I heard sirens, trucks rumbling through, shaking the ground. Later, the trucks rumbled back. It was about the right amount of time to drive 9 miles and corral a few busted-up men. I felt like such a coward leaving them, but I had orders, and I'd be damned if I'd let those men be shot for nothing. On the professor's desk was a flyer with the Swiss flag. Anna explained. It's a student. She had no word, but I did. It was a symposium, a showcase for music students in a neutral country. When? They leave tonight. How many can go? She shrugged. We send drei, she said. How many pages of music? She shook her head. The old man spoke. Thousands, she translated. 20,000 perhaps. Papers for the students? Just the invitation and their normal papers, said Anna. Anna, would you like to study music in America? Jazz, yes, she nodded. The guards were old men. We waited till one took a break and they were split. The students tied them, gagged them, apologized for the trouble it would bring. That night, 19 music students and myself boarded a train and spread out through the cars for the ride to Geneva. We crossed the border from Austria into Germany without stopping. 12 hours later, we sat on the siding while SS inspected us, opening each student's luggage to find 1,000 or more pages of sheet music carried by each. They're each prodigies, explained Anna, waving at the children, some as young as 12. I held back until all of the children had passed through the gate into Switzerland. Anna watched me from the other side. It felt good to have someone worry for me. It felt good that they were going to make it, even if I didn't. My papers were the finest Nazi papers Americans could forge. My language skills, pure New Jersey. I had just one chance. Pretend to be a savant, gifted in one area, maybe a little short in others. The SS guy was sharp, eyes like blue steel above the black wool uniform. He looked me in the eye and asked a question. I touched my mouth like I'd seen mute guys do. He scowled and waved me aside. No way was I going to make it. Through the fence, I saw Anna lift her cello case. Good idea. I opened my case. I was either going to play and get across or play and be shot. I was going to play if it was the last thing I did. I struck the bow to the strings, playing from memory, with snow falling around me and my back turned to the SS men. A hand grabbed my shoulder. Gay, gay, said the guard, waving toward the gate. I started walking, afraid to look back. Halt, he said. That was it. I was done. I turned. He handed me my violin case. I nodded thanks and stepped into Switzerland.
Sure.
Yeah.
Good job.
Good job, Bill.
The Heist of Song, a horror. My little baby girl used to hop up on my knee and sing her little song. I would hold her tight and whisper, "Daddy will protect you from the monsters." I thought I could protect her. Oh God, learn from my mistakes, I beg of you. She skips joyously into the room and sings the praise of this boy she brought around. I pace to and fro as I listen to his arrogant chatter, my anger rising. You are not good enough for my baby girl. Oh God, forgive my jealousy. It is agony watching my baby girl grow up. Weeks go by, months go by. My baby girl, she barely comes around anymore. And when she does, she fronts this fake smile and hums a melody that embodies her misery. You're not good for her. I try to caution her, but she rejects me, crying, "Daddy, I love him," as the door slams shut. No, this is not what I wanted. My baby girl, this is not your song. A year goes by. The aroma of a turkey dinner wafts through the air. The chime of the doorbell evokes feelings of angst. I turn the knob. Before me stands a pale-skinned woman with deep sunken eyes. She's barely recognizable. I force a fake smile, concealing my horror. "Daddy," she whispers as she lays into my chest and breathes me in. I hold her tight in my arms, clinging to my baby for dear life. Behind her walks in the monster I hate so much. Oh God, hold my tongue, lest I drive this wedge deeper. The evening commences and my heart is grieving. With the news, my baby girl has given up her dreams to be an ordinary housewife. A wife. I wasn't invited to the wedding. I thought you loved your work, I inquire. I do, Daddy, but this will be great too. I cast my gaze on him. His callous eyes flicker as he flashes a bone-chilling sneer. Oh God, calm my raging soul. Like a leech, he draws on her joy. I walk them to the door and hug her tight, whispering in her ear, "I love you. You call me day or night." "Are you coming?" he barks. "Shut up, you. Oh God, hold my tongue." I shut the door. Tears cascade down my cheeks as he drives away, taking my baby with him. I set my back against the door and slide down in a sobbing heap, my face buried in my hands. Oh God, don't let me lose her. Another month goes by. It's 4 a.m. The phone rings and rings. I rub my eyes. The ringing isn't in my dreams. Hello? "Daddy," she weeps. "You said you would protect me from the monsters." "Baby, where are you? Hold on. I'm coming. I'm on my way." I fumble down the stairs as I frantically hoist my jeans up over my waist. My keys chink as I force them into the ignition. "I'm coming, baby. I'm coming to get you." Oh God, protect her. I slam the truck into park and sprint up the driveway to the house. I slam my fist against the door, desperate for a sign of life. The door jerks open. Oh God, thank God. I hold my baby tight. "Daddy, Daddy, I love you." The blood drains from my face. Fury builds within my veins. My baby, covered in bruises. I glance up where he, the monster, stood gazing over all he had done with pride. Oh God, let me kill him. Please, Father, let me kill him. He bolts. I tear up the stairs in pursuit, through the living room, the kitchen, the hallway. Now trapped in the room, only one door lay behind me. I have him cornered. He cowers. I draw back my fist for a hard blow. He whimpers, like a beaten dog, urine seeping down his pant leg. I draw in heavy breaths to control the adrenaline driving me to kill. "You," I growl. "You aren't worth it." I walk away, taking my baby with me. A day goes by, then 2, then 3. My baby, she hums a sweet melody, the song I love to hear. A week goes by, then 2, then 3. I stir in the night, restless. I toss until finally, enough. I get up quietly, tiptoeing to her room. When I see her face, I know I will sleep. Her room is empty. Perhaps she too is restless. On my way to the kitchen, I notice her shoes missing. Her keys are gone too. No, not her car. Baby, no. Oh God, please bring her to her senses. The chinking of my keys prompts the sense of deja vu. Dirt kicks up as I swing out of the garage, speeding off down the road to the monster's lair. I feel sick. My hands are slipping on the wheel. A cold sweat is pouring from my body. Focus on the road. I pull up to the house. Red and blue lights dance across my dashboard. Oh God, have mercy. I jump out of the car and race across the lawn. An officer holds out his hands, but nothing and no one can stop me. My daughter is in there, I scream as I push past the officer. No, sir, stop. He pleads with me. Sir, you don't want to see her like this. But it's too late. There at the top of the stairs lay my baby girl. Oh God, oh God. Her cold, lifeless eyes burning into my mind forever. I fall back. An officer is there to catch me. He helps me outside where I double over, heaving. Oh God, let this nightmare end. I gaze up. The monster is being carried away in handcuffs. He sets his callous eyes on me and flashes his bone-chilling sneer. Oh God, I hate him. Oh God, forgive me.
All right, well, that was Bill and Evie.
Great job, guys.
Great job, guys. We enjoyed those. The Heist of Song. You guys were given, in my opinion, a tough title. Strongbow definitely fit legend and fairy tale really well.
Perfectly.
Yes.
Horror and historical fiction, you guys had to stretch it a little bit. But I thought you guys both did a great job.
Awesome, yeah.
So where do they vote? They go to our website.
Correct.
They go to Facebook, so there will be voting opportunities on both of those places.
Yep.
So the website is www.brewandinc.com, and then look us up on Facebook and like it, share it, just kind of get it out there. It's on the blog on SeriousWriter.com, so I know some people were talking about they couldn't find it the other day when I was telling people we were on SeriousWriter.com. We're on the blog portion of that, and we're going to find a good way to get that out to people a little better. So go and vote. Any other thoughts before we just kind of clink it out?
No, I think that was good. We want to get the feedback from you guys, our faithful listeners. We want to know what you think, who you like better. That way we can keep these stories coming to you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And until next time, raise that glass to inspiration.
All right.
And so as soon as I'm kind of in my space, then I'm just, off. Like a whatever, rocket.
Popping out muffins.
Popping them babies out.
Yeah, and I think that's the point.
Horror muffins.
Yeah. Every sentence has an arc. Mm-hmm. Every paragraph has an arc. Mm-hmm. Every scene has its own arc.
Every Noah has an arc.
Yeah.
Sorry,
But,
I had to.
Wait, there are other dads here. That should have been our... No, so...